This is Coda Radio, episode 289 for December 22nd-ish, 2017. Hello everyone, and welcome to Coda Radio, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show, taking a pragmatic look at the art and business of software development and its related technologies. This episode is brought to you by our two fine sponsors, DigitalOcean and Linux Academy. My name is Chris, and joining us every single week, like a man who just got back from fighting dragons, a little tattered, but ready for the show, it's our host, Mr. Dominic. Hello, Mike!
The software developers need to end.
What? I'm sorry, did you know you're one of them? You are,
No, I get that, but I'm in denial and I'm on a little island somewhere.
Oh, you've already made preparations, I see. Is like Professor X on this island with you? Is it like,
let's just say all the disappointed heroes are on this island with me.
I thought you'd be all happy, and I thought this would be a great day for you. You know, Santa Trump gave you your big holiday gift. I thought you were going to be like all jazzed up.
You're triggering me. I see what you're doing.
I was just we got a couple of people who wrote some pretty good responses. One of them's on the subreddit. Pretty good. Pretty good. Pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah, you can jump into that if you want.
No, it's okay. Let's do this. Let's pull back the curtain. Look up the Komodo here for a second. What is going on is Mike and I have gotten together on a Friday when we really had, by no right, are ready to do the show again. But we just missed each other that much. No, actually, we're getting ready to record our shows for the holidays. And so, as is per tradition, Mr. Dominic is supposed to pour himself a beverage. And I have myself a beverage, and we sit around and we do a couple of shows instead of just one. And by the second show, we're generally a little looser. So I feel like we should save it for the second show, because I have myself, I'm going to do a shot of London Dry Gin here at some point during the show when you're talking. So I'll be ready. That'll be my holiday.
Great. And I will be having coffee,
I know.
Although I did have a martini lunch. So.
Oh, good. Okay, so you pre-showed a little bit. I like that.
I pre-showed, yes.
You know me. I got to read every tweet. You know, every automated and real tweet that comes from Mike Dominic.
I don't do that anymore. Although I did learn from YouTube that I'm a Microsoft shill now.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, is that a thing?
I find that amazing sitting next to my MacBook and System 76 laptop.
I actually,
okay.
I don't even really think, I mean, I can't think of anyone in the popular media space that's a shill for Microsoft. Like, Paul Thurrott calls them on quite a bit of stuff. I think Paul Thurrott just has
even Microsoft followers are like...
Yeah, like Mary Jo Foley, again, same thing. I think they're both very level-headed Microsoft analysis, people who just have a deep understanding of how Microsoft works. And so sometimes they can give you a reason for something, and people say, "Oh, you're being an apologist." What happened? What was the cause of this horrible claim?
The comment was on the Everybody Needs a Barb episode, I think. Although it would make a lot more sense for the Windows Linux one, right?
Yeah, right. So what bothers you more?
Azure.
What bothers you more, though?
Azure.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that is true. What bothers you more, Linux apologist, Microsoft apologist, or Apple apologist? And do you think soon people will get labeled as Google and Amazon? Yeah, probably. They probably already are.
Oh, they already do. Yeah.
Like I've just never been labeled those ones. True. Good point. Yeah. Okay. That's a good example of an apologist, actually.
Right. Because he's actually an apologist, right? I mean, do you remember which is the one of the last Pierce Brosnan James Bond movies with that weird-looking Dutch dude?
Was that Goldeneye or Never Die?
It was after Goldeneye when he kills that ugly-looking dude and
Die Another Day. I like that. I can't help it. I like the Brosnan Bonds. That was my Bond.
I like Pierce Brosnan.
That was my Bond. You know, that's my age range.
Yeah, but it's mine too, right? But there's the line, "I'm just a professional doing a job." He gets shot in the face, by the way. But yeah, that's it. Like, I don't care. Like, I don't get it. I mean, if a Windows ME computer did the job better, I would be using that.
Can I tell you that 2017 has been the biggest year of reckoning for me on this?
Go.
I didn't appreciate or psychologically have a complete understanding of the momentum that LAS put in my life, where when I did Linux Action Show, I needed to live Linux every single day just to do the show. Like that's just to get like content and to have experiences to talk about and to try new software. Like there was no way around it. You ran Linux every day, and so it was Linux first, and then oh god, if it can't be done with Linux, well, how the hell am I going to pull this off? What hack? What compromise do I have to make? And then after I ended LAS, even though I'm still doing LUP and Linux Action News, which are solely Linux shows, I started reevaluating everything on its actual merits, and I felt like all of a sudden I was way more in alignment with how the audience evaluates technology. Like a portion of them are open source and Linux only, and nothing else will do. But the vast, vast majority, and that's why we have more people downloading on Windows than Linux and Mac, right? The vast majority of them evaluate each thing on its technical merits and at what solution it provides to them. And I found myself throughout all of 2017 doing that. Every single time, desktop, Linux, applications, editing software, home automation stuff, everything had to now be better. Like it being Linux and open source wasn't a qualifier enough anymore. It had to really compete on its own merits as a complete solution, and that has been a huge. It's been a huge relief. It's been a huge shift for me, and it's been I don't know why, but it has been a giant weight off my shoulders. It has been a huge weight, and the other thing that I really am happy about is in spite of all of that, in this total reevaluation of everything I use, through all of it, I wound up back on Linux. I just wound up on 1604 and Unity 7. But I still, like, I didn't abandon the desktop. But now I'm like, well, shit, like Windows 7 with classic theme, and when you go into like the performance settings and you can optimize for raw performance instead of the way it looks, it's inarguably the fastest operating system I've ever used in terms of application and window load time and close time and minimize and just like the UI speed can't be beat. Now, application load time, I think Windows 10 has it beat, but other than that, like it's just if you need to run proprietary Skype, there's no better operating system, and that's just the truth. It has the best sound, it has the best upstream vendor support, and this is a Windows 7 machine that you and I are talking on, and it is a rock. It is a absolute rock. And while I have Skype that completely trashed my sound system on Linux recently, and I have one of my audio interfaces just goes away, just completely disappears sometimes, and it is just, if you just listen to this week's Ask Noah, it sounds really weird because it's the same issue. He got hit with it, and it just hits us. And because it's on a machine that you're not listening to a direct feed, you have no idea until you're done that it's a problem, and it completely destroys an episode of a show. It's his least downloaded show because of that audio problem. And it's really frustrating because he does such hard work on that, and then one piece of equipment goes out, and then it turns out, oh, well, if I was running Windows, that wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't have lost that episode. Well, that changes everything. That changes everything. It's been a huge year for me, 2017, that way. I mean, predominantly, I've remained on Linux, but for the first time in 6-7 years, I have a Windows box in the studio again. One Windows box.
I've been having dreams, Chris. Can I tell you about my dream?
Yes, please. I love hearing about... Actually... Just really a quick sidebar. I get like baby panic attacks when my family tells me about their dreams. My fiance, my kids, like when they take 10 minutes of my day to tell me about oh, good. I feel like the worst person ever because they're so excited to tell me, and I have nearly an anxiety attack after about 5 minutes into it. Anyways, but I do want to hear about your dream.
Well, because my dream, is some sort of setup.
Yeah. It's worth my time.
I'm wandering in an ice-cold field. There's mountains. I'm freezing to death. I'm looking at crash logs.
Oh boy.
I'm stumbling. I'm falling. Everything is just, there's tears running down my face. And then in the distance, I see movement atop a hill.
Is it Ryan Sipes?
No. He's hanged on a tree somewhere as a traitor. I love you, Ryan. Just kidding. I see what looks like some sort of cat on a hill as the snow starts to come down.
Oh, okay.
Telling me,
okay.
you know exactly where this is going. Telling me that it wasn't always this hard. You will one day climb this Mount Sierra. You will one day overcome and be back to the home of the leopard. Dare I say, the snow leopard.
Is this your long way of telling me you installed Snow Leopard on one of your systems?
If I could get away with running Snow Leopard in production, that is all I would run.
Yeah, that's the Windows 7 advantage is you can still install it today, right? I mean,
Mac doesn't even run on the hardware. Good luck.
Yeah, and if you look at the iMac Pro, I bet you with that T2 chip in there, it will never go below the current point release of High Sierra. It can never go below that. So
you can turn that off. And by the way,
you can turn it off, the encryption and the secure boot, but it's still the controller for the SSD. You see what I'm saying? There's probably no driver in lower versions of macOS for that SSD controller.
You can get the current version, but you can turn off the auto update thing, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So, whatever the version of High Sierra is, that's your minimum viable Mac. But yeah, I've been feeling the same way that everything is getting progressively crappier. And I just want to wander into the Himalayas and chill with the snow leopard.
Well, not everything, though, if you think about it. So I was reading your tweet here about, how you were spending, your whole life in JavaScript since we talked last. But switching over to
Visual... That is not a happy tweet. I just want to put some context.
I know, but there is, if you look at it, the thing I take away from this is Visual Studio Code. That's what you're using, and you're changing habits. I guess where I'm going with this is look at Canonical, look at Microsoft and Amazon this year. They really overall got better. They got a lot better. Just those three examples. So not everything's gone to shit, but the shit that we use to do our shit has gone to shit. See how profound
that was
that is?
Shitception. Hang on, wait.
I wish I had that bong handy. Bong. What I'm saying is,
did you already pound half that bottle of gin? Wait, which? So
we are shot one in. Well, no, what I'm saying is the stuff you use to build the things is getting worse. The desktop operating system, the Chrome browser, a lot of the little components that we rely upon to build our whatever output is are getting worse. But then at the same time, some of the services that we put them on are they're getting better and they're improving and they're making decisions long term that are going to make them even better. And so not everything is getting horrible, but ironically, the very tools we need to take advantage of the stuff that's getting better have gotten worse. Do you follow me? The desktops are getting worse. The desktop applications are getting worse. That's what you need to build applications for the cloud. Honestly, with the exception of Windows 10. Windows 10, I think, has gotten a lot better. I was
just going to slap you with my Windows dong here because it's only Mac and Linux that are getting worse. Well, right? Windows is getting progressively better.
I think still long-term Linux desktop is looking the best. I think long-term Linux desktop is looking the best.
I don't know. But, for me, I know people are going to hate me on this, but for me, Linux desktop does equal some form of Ubuntu.
Yes.
And they wasted a lot of time with that Wayland.
Wayland? You mean Unity?
Whatever. Unity.
Well, no, it matters because Wayland's going to be even worse than the transition to Unity was, I think. So
just the fact that there's and I get this is very anti-Linux. This is I had a comment at the little System 76 roundtable, and I got you're a Mac guy. Options are bad. People don't need options. You should give me a workstation that works and that I don't need to give a shit about. Which is, to their credit, what System 76 does do. But the idea that I can change the window manager and that the window manager will be slightly shitty depending on my configuration is really bad.
Yes, yeah. If you use Ubuntu proper or Elementary OS or Solus,
Right. If you use one of the major ones, you're generally okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, let me say this, though. Long term, I really think that, I really do think that even after the Wayland transition, that the thing is, you know me, you and I have talked about this enough. My view is that eventually the tug of the strategy tax becomes annoying enough. It's just constant friction that keeps throwing roadblocks in front of developers' workflows because Microsoft or Apple wants to do something crazy for this next year, and it just gets annoying after a while. And now that Canonical is part of the GNOME advisory board, and now that they're developing and working upstream with GNOME, and they're shipping GNOME, you have Red Hat, SUSE, Dell, HP, Canonical, and those are just the ones I can name on one hand, that are all working to contribute towards GNOME now. And there's no singular commercial interest that is driving any particular feature of GNOME other than, can we build a good developer workstation? That is the true singular focus of this conglomerate. It will take forever. It's more like evolution than it is immaculate conception. So it takes longer, and we have to go through Wayland, and we have to get hardware support there, and we have to get new drivers and all of that stuff that's going to be horrible. But I have to believe long term, because this group effort is insulated from any one particular corporate failure. There's no singular strategy tax. There's no singular visionary coming along saying we're going to build the digital hub of your future. It's kind of this collection of effort that just kind of slowly produces a very usable desktop. And in my view, that has to win out long term. It just seems impossible. It doesn't. It's like Linux. It might take 25 years, but eventually it's just everywhere.
The problem with any argument that says it might take X years is that the world, your enemies, your competitors, whatever.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Don't like sit still and wait for you.
That's fair.
Right. I mean, I don't want to harken back to 2 episodes ago, but if you haven't used Windows since like Windows XP or Windows Vista or even Windows 7, I'd argue, Windows 10 is really good.
Yeah.
And like, if I didn't need to compile iOS apps, I can't honestly say that I would still be looking at this MacBook Pro. And by the way,
we say that. You know what? Both you and I are suffering, and I think we have to acknowledge this a little bit, from the grass is greener, because a lot of times when you try out an OS for 1 or 2 weeks, that first 2-3 week, even sometimes a month, I know you know this, but I'm just reminding you,
right,
that first month or so is like, oh man, it does it this way? That is way better. Like, I'll tell you, like, I still am telling people, the way Windows 10 does window snapping, when you snap one window to the side and then it exposes all the other windows, and then you select one and it pops in, and then you get this big fatty bar, like if it's designed for a tablet, because it was, where you can slide both windows together and they're locked together, their proportions are locked. That is enough where sometimes when Windows 10 accidentally starts booting on my machine at home, you know what? I just need to run Slack in a web browser. That's all I need. I need Chrome or Firefox. Actually, I'm using Firefox. And
I'm using Firefox too,
and Slack. And Windows 10 does it great. And so there's simple things in Windows 10 that when you see them, you're like, oh, geez, that's way better than the way we've implemented snapping on Linux. That's so much nicer.
Oh, no, it's significantly better.
Right. But
and Mac doesn't have it, right? Like there's something like almost sort of like it, but it sucks, right?
Yeah, yes, yeah. That is, yeah. But there are things that OS 10 handles really simply, or Linux just handles because of the kernel. That we take for granted.
Let me just give one to OS 10. Mac is really smart about, hey, you have a monitor. And it's like, I might think, like it assumes the monitor is to the right of your laptop, but there's a very easy way to fix that. Where on Linux, that's kind of hard and annoying. And if the resolutions are different on the monitors, you get all kinds of weird things when you drag windows from one to the other. Aliasing. Yep. I mean, you've bitched about the aliasing stuff in Unity and GNOME, and it's just like, on Mac, it doesn't care, right? It's like, oh, okay, well, then I will just redraw the entire window, right? Yeah,
you can tell. I think if you listen back to this year's shows, you and I are mulling over a lot of this stuff, probably to an annoying degree of the audience, although except for people that have also gone through this or are going through it.
Well, let me tell you something. I'm saving it for the next show, which is approximately 40 minutes, because my year in review is going to be great. It's going to be just like Luke's.
Okay. All right. You know what? Let's table it, because I think we've done enough of this.
But I did want to add like one piece to it, though, if I can. So I know we were going to talk about the Apple stuff, but there's an interesting parallel between this entire OS conversation that people both love and hate at the same time, and what has happened to developer tools.
I completely agree.
Right, particularly things like Electron, things like React, things like Xamarin. And maybe we should save it for the next show. It's up to you. Do you want to do this, or do you want to do the Apple stuff now, and we'll do this in the next show?
I almost think we should, because we've already gone into the Apple stuff. Plus, we have a bunch of feedback on that.
Let's do the Apple stuff. Okay,
and
so,
then if,
so
you know,
289 Apple, 290s. Yeah, sad realizations.
Perfect. So here's the thing: 289. It's not. This isn't going to be an Apple circle jerk, but there's a bunch of new stuff. There is some feedback. What did you say?
Drop your trousers.
Oh, all right. I'm not going to apologize for it. This is based on what we've gotten back.
All right, listen. It is December 22nd. The only tech company that's had any news, by the way, most of it's negative, has been Apple.
I have some news.
You have news? I would love to hear news.
I am.
But I'd love an ad first.
Oh, God damn, you're a pro. DigitalOcean.com. Go over to DigitalOcean.com and use our promo code CODERDIGITAL. Now you can get started with a $10 credit at DigitalOcean. You can set up a droplet in less than 55 seconds. A droplet is DigitalOcean's term for essentially a VPS machine that you get. But think of it more as portable infrastructure. You can move things around, you can upgrade things, you can transfer between accounts, you can add storage. So it is a droplet, because it's more than what you normally conceptualize in a service like this, especially when I get to the pricing. But first, whatever you deploy DigitalOcean, keep in mind it's going to have SSD storage. Everything's going to be super, super fast, and it'll be easy to attach more storage. They have monitoring and alerting where you can get metrics and performance, not only indicators, but alerts when things are down, and load balancing as a service, a fully managed service that works right out of the box to distribute incoming traffic and increase your site and applications availability. Talk about looking like a boss. Lightning fast networking, 40 gigabits into each single hypervisor. Data centers all over the world, but look at the pricing. For $5 a month, you can get started. Now that's where the Coder Digital promo code makes a lot of sense, because you get a $10 credit. So for $5 a month, you could run 2 of these things, or you could for 1 month, or you could run 1 for 2 months. Oh, look at me with the math. I did it, everybody. DigitalOcean.com. Use the promo code Coder Digital. But really, you want to have some fun? I mean, all of these things are crazy fast. Actually, dude, I'm not even gonna. I was gonna say go deploy one with like 200 gigs of RAM and then use a RAM disk and have some fun. But actually, go deploy the $5 a month one, and just see what Linux can do, and see what you can do with DigitalOcean's infrastructure. You get 512 megs of RAM, 1 virtual CPU, 20 gigs of SSD, and a terabyte of transfer. Oh, 512 megs of RAM? I would never even put that in my machine. Try it. It's amazing. It is incredible. When I first started DigitalOcean, all I deployed was the $5 a month droplets. Now my favorite is the 3 cents an hour. You get 2 gigs of RAM, 2 CPUs, 40 gigabyte SSD, and 3 terabytes of transfer. Develop locally and deploy globally. They have data centers all over the world. Interfaces that are It's perfect. They're perfect, because if you're a pro, if you've been doing virtual machines since virtual machines were a thing on System 390s, then you're gonna have no problem getting through this interface. But if you've never even set up a server, you've never even booted a server, you're gonna find this interface approachable, usable, and understandable. It's amazing, and I think it's actually an API client too, which, God, if I don't love that and respect that. DigitalOcean.com. Go over there, sign up, and then use our promo code CoderDigital. And a big thank you to DigitalOcean for sponsoring the Coder Radio program. So, I very much, I view like when you launch a new product, when you launch something like Alice, It is in a lot of ways similar, and I hope you don't find this to be demeaning, but I feel like it's in a lot of ways, it's very similar to launching a new podcast because I have...
Makes sense.
There's something to create, there's a format, you have art, you have to work with a designer, you have like companies you might even interact with for the launch, and like there's this... Then there's the host, and then there's the people behind the scenes producing, and then you have back-end infrastructure that you have to build to host the show. Sometimes you try your best, and especially around the holidays, there can sometimes just be compromises that come up that you go, oh God, I would never have, if I could have avoided this, I never would have done it this way. And we were really walking that line with the new TechSnap, but everybody really came together, and the new infrastructure really kind of clicked into place that we've been developing for a while. And my current skills on editing have sort of evolved to another level. And it just all kind of came together. And 2 weeks ago, we rebooted the TechSnap program on the network. Wes and I are now the primary hosts. We'll be talking to Dan and Alan as the show goes on, but it's a total like reboot. It's like it's like if you started over from a whole new code base. Literally, it's we're building a minimum viable product right now. We're recreating how we publish it. We're redoing how we prep for it. We're redoing how we record it. It's completely redone how we edit it. It's how the links are done. Like every single aspect is completely new. It's a totally new product, and I wasn't sure if we were going to get it all together and get it out, and now we've just done 2 weeks, and I think the second episode was even better than the first episode, and I was pretty proud of the first episode, so I'm kind of like, I don't know what's the expression, Cloud 7 or whatever. I'm pretty excited right now, Cloud 9, and we just did an episode on network namespaces, and I thought I should mention it here because Wes was a pretty well-liked host on this show, and so if you miss hearing from Wes, go check out the new show. We just did an episode on network namespaces, which is something that Wes has quite a bit of experience with. It's been around for a while. BSD has an equivalent, and I've never really needed to use them, but huge for application developers. The things you can do with network namespaces on Linux, you could really, really, really get a lot of benefit out of this episode. If you need to simulate network connectivity, separate networks, you need to troubleshoot things in low bandwidth environments, anything like that, you can use network namespaces on Linux. It's all baked in, and Wes does a deep dive on the new TechSnap program, episode 349. You can go to techsnap.systems/349, or just go to techsnap.systems. 348 is when we rebooted. That's the new format. That's the new show. And then 349 is sort of like, okay, here's our second attempt, and we're going to keep iterating at it. We're also because the podcast is a product, right? That's the end product is the podcast. So this show has been retooled to not embrace, but take advantage of the modern podcast player, because pretty much everybody who listens to audio podcasts is doing so through some sort of podcast app now on their phone, which wasn't the case when we launched Coda Radio or TechSnap. That's all changed. And so now everybody wants all of the show notes. They want all of the links in the podcast app, which sounds obvious to say that to anybody who listens to podcasts. I understand that. But TechSnap was launched before there were podcast apps. So that wasn't a requirement because there weren't any podcast apps. And so not only are we doing that now, which took a total retooling of how we do our feeds, how we input notes, all of that, but we're also doing chapter markers with time coding and hyperlinks and changing album art to give visuals of what we're talking about while we talk about it. And which is, I think, what people expect now. And it's so great because when you have like an hour-long show, there's like everything's broken out, every single topic. So if you hate, if we could do it for this show, it would take a total retooling. But if you hated the Apple stuff, you could just skip ahead because everything is itemized out with a hyperlink that's relevant to like, here's additional information on what we're talking about. And you just have to have a podcast player that supports it. And anyways, I'm just super pumped because sometimes we relaunch or sometimes we launch a new podcast and it's like a 60% hit. This, while it is a minimum viable podcast, I think I'm pretty happy with it. I want to give it a plug here because specifically episode 349 is very valuable for people that need to do local testing, and you need to test network connectivity. Even if you're building sites, you want to isolate a browser, you want to send just one application through a VPN so you can test things remotely or externally, I should say. So you want just Firefox to go out through a VPN interface and all your other stuff to go out your regular network interface. This episode addresses that. So it's techsnap.systems/349. So thank you for letting me go on about that.
Very cool. Most important question. Is there still an Alan at JupiterBroadcasting.com email account?
Oh, yeah. Well, he's still doing BSD now, and he's going to come on the TechSnap program. So
continue to send your hate mail there,
and
PHP users.
And the rumor has it he's going to be, because he said so, he'll be at Linux Fest Northwest. So
do you know where I will never be?
Linux Fest Northwest?
Because it always conflicts with my son's birthday.
Gosh, I wish I actually would very much like to come to Florida. So I've been there once before, but I don't.
We'll talk about it next episode.
Okay.
You really don't. No.
All right. Well,
I tell you something. You better hit that bottle before 290. I'm just letting you know.
Okay. All right. So before we get into Eric Schmidt, I want to get to the feedback. It came in from Pinky Pooja, which is got to be in the top 3. He says, I recently threw High Sierra with APFS 2 on one of my old 2.5-inch SSDs in my PC just to see how it would run. I used
Nightmare.
I remember I specifically solicited this. I'm like, are people still doing Hackintoshes with High Sierra? Last week. He says, I use the Tony Mac tools and it boots from Refined from my Linux NVMe drive without any hackery. By the way, Refined, which is REFIND, is awesome. I highly recommend it. It was fairly painless other than typical Wi-Fi sound video issues. It took a couple of configuration attempts in Multibeast. Multibeast is a Hackintosh like respin, I guess you could say, and it took a bit of tinkering with boot flags and BIOS settings. Yeah, okay. So this is essentially my experience. If you get compatible Intel hardware and you set the right BIOS settings, like turn off some legacy stuff, it's essentially make everything be modern. That's what you had to do to get Hackintoshes to work a while ago. Refind, REFIND. I want to mention that again because that is also a tool you can use just to dual boot Linux and Mac OS or triple boot Linux, Mac OS, and Windows on a MacBook Pro or whatever. This is a great, great tool. This is one that I use on my MacBook 2013, late 2013 edition, where I dual boot Mac OS 10 and Arch. And I don't know why. Maybe it's the bootloader built into the UEFI, or whatever Mac calls it, open firmware or whatever they call it. But I updated that old 2013 MacBook Pro to High Sierra, and I can still boot into Arch with no problem. So Refind is big double down endorsement by both Pinky Pooja and me. He says he's even running optical audio, which is amazing. So he's got, a fiber optical audio, and macOS recognizes his UPS and auto shuts down out of the box. No stupid crappy cyber power driver required like on Windows or Linux. Wi-Fi doesn't work. It's an Atheros chipset, if I remember correctly, so I don't use Wi-Fi. He's doing this again on a desktop, a GTX 1070 video card, an i770 Kaby Lake CPU. It's a Asus ROG Z270 Mini ITX board. So if you want to do this, you get the Asus ROG 270 Mini ITX, and it would supposedly work. He says, also, I was surprised that NVIDIA provided good up-to-date drivers for Mac OS for some of their recent cards, probably because external GPUs are now a thing, and they want to cash in on what the new MacBook Pros. Yeah, no, I don't think Pinky Poo. I don't think it's the eGPU market on MacBooks. That can't be more than what, 50,000, 100,000 units a year. I doubt that's why NVIDIA is doing it. It's because the new modular MacBook Pro, or the new modular Mac Pro, is going to have NVIDIA cards. Mark my words, early 2018 prediction right there. It's going to be in the modular Mac Pro. And you know what?
That seems pretty obvious, right? If Apple wants to be serious in VR and AR, they're gonna need NVIDIA. Exactly.
And NVIDIA even hired a full-time Mac OS driver developer. And I don't think they would do that unless there was going to be an incoming revenue stream. But overall, he says, if you have a compelling reason to use Mac OS and there aren't any Macs that you like, You might as well try it. Pros have been clamoring for a couple of years for an updated Mac Pro. And you know, I agree. That is better than I expected with High Sierra. It just wasn't going to happen. So I agree. If it's still doable, why not give it a shot? I don't know. Honestly, in 2017, 2018, for video production, if it's worth it. But if you need to run Xcode, it might just be worth it. Let us know. This is an area where we get a lot of questions that Mike and I don't have firsthand experience with anymore. I used to run several Hackintoshes, and it sounds like it's pretty similar to how it used to be. He didn't touch on updates, OS updates, but let us know. Before we move on, Mr. Dominic, and get it, let's just take a break from all the Apple shit for a second. What do you think? You good with that? And let's talk Google. Let's talk your favorite Googler, Eric Schmidt. Eric Schmidt.
I love him.
Eric Schmidt is stepping down as an executive chairman. Hold on a second. Let's do a thought experiment. You ready? Let's do a little thought experiment. Just to see how you interpret this.
Oh.
Breaking news here. Eric Schmidt stepping down as the chairman of Alphabet. What is the first thought that comes to your mind?
He's going to run for president.
Oh, God. That was not my first thought. My first thought was that he touched somebody.
Oh, of course he did.
Yeah, he seems really creepy. But he's going to transition to a technical advisor role. Eric Schmidt, a technical advisor. You know, okay, I wasn't going to make fun of Eric Schmidt until I read that. Eric Schmidt is a bureaucrat. Eric Schmidt runs Alphabet for one singular reason. He's
a G-man.
He has the best contacts with the government until recently. Now that a conservative government is in power, he is losing his influence. And that's what it comes down to, is he doesn't have influence without Hillary in office. I like that he's going to be a technical advisor.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to get into conspiracy theories.
No, that's not a conspiracy theory. That is in this CNBC article. That's not a conspiracy theory. I mean, that is legitimately what's going on. Is he doesn't have the cachet that he
so far to one side is that the other side hates you, right?
Right. That's exactly what the problem is he's hated in D.C. because he was a Hillary shill, and now that's not hip. And Trump's in power, and he's passing tax bills, and Eric Schmidt is a liability for Alphabet. And so they're going to put somebody else in there, but I wonder who. And if they take, say, one of the two Google founders, Larry Page, I don't know who, then that's one less insulating factor at Google.
Wait a minute. If only there were a technically savvy Republican that was available.
Well, that guy would be happy about the tax bill because Apple is... You remember how we've always heard about Apple bringing in a whole bunch of their monies?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I guess the new tax bill is going to allow them to bring back $252.3 billion foreign dollars.
Wait a minute. Allow them?
Without a major tax hit.
I was going to say, that's a cute way to phrase that.
Well, yeah, that's Reuters for you, or Reuters. The tax overhaul passed by Congress this week will allow Apple to bring back $252.3 billion foreign cash piled dollars without a major tax hit, which is a long-standing goal of theirs. I bet
they will use that for shareholder dividends and buybacks.
Yeah, I bet Tim Cook's going to get a nice bony from that. All right, so let's just get through. There's just a couple of Apple stories because we've been sort of delaying this. We've been delaying the inevitable, and I feel like we just need to get through them. There is a huge rumor that I think is very germane to this show, and then there is a huge controversy, which I'm not sure how we're going to feel about this. So let's take a moment and cleanse the palate and thank Linux Academy for sponsoring the Coder Radio program. linuxacademy.com/coders. Go there to get a 7-day free trial to the Linux Academy platform. Linux Academy is a full-featured training library with everything you need to learn new skills and advance your career. If you're looking for a job, you've got one, or you need new clients, this is a great resource. Self-paced, in-depth video courses on every Linux, cloud, and DevOps topic, including AWS, Azure, and OpenStack, with hands-on scenario-based labs that give you experience on real servers so you have the confidence not only for the test, but also for production, which I don't know how you put a value on that, really, to be honest with you. And if you ever get stuck, they have humans that can help you, real-time, full-time instructors that are there to help help the pupils. And they're constantly adding new courseware, new practice exams, new certification training, new flashcards. And the flashcards are really cool because it's kind of like an open source initiative, really, because the community is forking them, adding new study material. They have goals of completion and like certifications that get posted on your public profile. You can link that to an employer or a potential client, or just use it for yourself to just keep track of the accomplishments. linuxacademy.com/coders. You can also grab the downloadable comprehensive study guides, lesson audio, and the little toolkits that you can use either on your iOS or Android app or a phone thingy, whatever you use, I don't care, to do your testing while you're going. Try a practice exam. You got some commute time? Take a practice exam. Learn about Ruby. That's such a cool feature. And they're adding new stuff all the time. And the courseware will spin up a virtual server when you need it. It's really simple to SSH into it. You get the full experience. You can go to linuxacademy.com/coders to log in, create an account, try out a 7-day trial, and just take a look around. See if there's something you want to learn. Maybe you can get something under your belt in that 7 days. That'd be pretty cool. linuxacademy.com/coders. linuxacademy.com/coders. And a big thank you to Linux Academy for sponsoring the Coder Radio program. So every single outlet this week is reporting. Ryan Sipes. You know what? Did we say Ryan's name 3 times? We just did.
We did, yeah.
Hey, Ryan Sipes in the Discord. Well, Ryan, stick around. We're doing 2 shows. So Apple has a big rumor this week, and every news outlet is reporting on it. I believe it started with your good buddy Mark Gurman over at Bloomberg, and now everywhere has a report, including the folks at Ars, which essentially says that Apple has a skunkworks project, much like they did with the Intel stuff. So all these things always get immediate traction because, well, one time the rumors were true that Apple had a skunkworks Intel project for Mac OS. So therefore, every other rumor
at Bandcamp,
yeah,
they bought some Pentium 4s.
Yeah, so therefore, every other rumor about Apple having skunkworks project must be true. But this one, oh god,
this one is true.
Yeah, probably. So the thing here is that it just seems like obvious that they would be building universal apps for iOS and macOS. The internal Apple project is codenamed Marzipan. It's not yet a done deal, but it essentially would unify macOS and iOS. And the speculation is wide, everywhere from a totally new OS for Macs that is based on iOS, sort of like how they build Apple TV or Apple tvOS or whatever, watchOS. Then there would be macOS, but it would be based on iOS, just like Apple like tvOS and watchOS. Or it's going to be some sort of universal platform where there's a runtime. I mean, there's the speculation is running crazy. It would seem to make sense that at some point they have to unify these 2 platforms. You can look at some of the applications that are available for the Mac, and they're kind of like watered down, obvious ports of iOS. Photos, maps, contacts, and it's an obvious derivative of the
messages.
iOS. Yeah, well, that's it. Yeah. Anyways, what do you think of this idea? And do you think it would be the worst thing that ever happens ever? Are you muted over there? I mean, come on. Ryan's watching.
No, I was just crying to myself.
Don't embarrass me in front of Ryan. That'd be really bad. I mean, jeez.
So, is it the worst thing that's ever happened? No. They upgraded Snow Leopard to something crappy called Lion.
If you're watching, by the way, if you're watching the video version of this show, the screenshot they have here of Mac OS, geez, if that doesn't look like GNOME 3. Holy shit. If they got the dark theme with that is verbatim what my GNOME 3 desktop, except for an Apple logo up there in the middle. Wow.
Yeah.
And pretty close to what Unity 7 looks like too, actually. This is this I feel like is inevitable. This the Mac has sucked since the iPhone became a hit. It really has. And the applications, remember when iLife and iWorks were like a yearly thing? That's gone, just totally gone. If it doesn't help iCloud, if it doesn't help integration with the iPhone,
and by the way, God couldn't help iCloud at this point. Like
you really do you want to get into iCloud really? Because I
hate iCloud. That's what I'm saying.
What's the matter with you?
Divine. What do you mean? It doesn't work ever. Like
what?
Basic syncing doesn't work.
I feel like we got to stay on point because that you're wrong. And
when I go to the iCloud deal, Hang on, my man-child servant is bringing me coffee. We all have to wait.
Oh my god! All right, I'll finish off this bottle of gin.
Where can you buy those Princess Leia bikinis again? No, I'm kidding.
Oh, I bet you could find them on Amazon, my friend.
I'm sure you can. The Jeff Bezos collection. No, but all right. So this makes a lot of sense to me because Mac apps have effectively been coming kind of. All right.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I agree.
If you hate Electron apps, then this is not quite as bad.
No,
right?
they're native.
If you're like, go ahead.
They're native, right? I mean, they run native apps. They build down to.
They're technically native. I think that this makes a lot of sense. As the only person on the air today who has actually done Mac and iOS development quite separately from each other, I can tell you that the AppKit framework is a gigantic pain in the ass compared to Cocoa Touch, or rather UIKit. And especially when dealing with like table views, when working in AppKit, I have long wished for UIKit.
Yeah, I can understand that. I totally can understand that. But my response to that is show me Photoshop or Final Cut or Logic on iOS.
Yeah, but Photoshop and Final Cut, not Final Cut, are
that's still something else.
very different, but equally fun. That's what they need those new NVIDIA chips for. Are partially still in Carbon, aren't they? Like
yeah.
C++, like they're not even like really. They're certainly not Swift.
But that's actually my point, Mike. Is I think that's what it takes to have like a multi-million or billion-dollar company invest more than 6 months into something. Is you gotta have runway that is 5, 6, 7, 10, maybe even 20 years.
I don't understand that.
Well, so the value of the Mac and the value of Windows is that applications that Adobe spent millions of dollars on 15 years ago are still runnable and relevant and not completely unusable.
Yeah, what's wrong with that, though?
You reboot and you base it on iOS and you start shipping...
Okay.
The thing is that iOS apps can't do the same things that Mac apps. Mac apps have access to the file system. Mac apps can talk to my microphone without requesting it. Mac applications can just abuse my GPU in a way that gets the job done. iOS devices don't have that option.
Your GPU was asking for it.
An iOS device can't even play 2 sound files at the same time. It can't even play 2 audio files at the same time. You can't.
Which is stupid.
You can't. What?
Which is really stupid.
Yeah, I mean, my point is the value of the Mac is that it is not iOS, and the value of Windows is that it is not Android.
You're reading a lot into this. So there's a couple things they could be doing, right? They could be doing exactly what you say, and I think the evidence actually supports what you're saying.
It's Bloomberg, it's Gurman, it's a bunch of yeah.
Right, where it's because with the sandboxing, right, on Mac, sandboxing really doesn't need to exist on Mac. Like at this point,
it's been a huge failure for the Mac App Store.
Right, but I just don't think that's right. Right, Macs are basically professional production tools at this point. I just don't think you need that level of hand-holding.
Exactly. And the thing is, which is really quick to interject, but if you think about it, it's already typically safer than a Windows machine. So you have an engineer, you have somebody who's creating something on a Mac, they're almost better off than they would be on a Windows system. On a Mac, you just don't need the level of protection that you need on a phone, is my personal opinion. All right, continue on.
Yeah, mine too. So it is, I would even say likely that what you're saying is true, that they're going to bring it over both in APIs and policy over to the iOS sort of way, the UIKit, Cocoa Touch sort of way. But there's a hope, and as a former Mac developer, I would really have this hope that they're just doing. There was a project called Chameleon, which basically did this. It wrapped AppKit APIs and frameworks in UIKit-like wrappers. So the idea was you would get a simpler, UI table view delegate, data source kind of pattern. That's the specific thing for table views and generating cells, but actually get an NS table view, right? Like an AppKit table view. If they're just doing that, that would actually be phenomenal. That would give you an easier interface, a more modern interface to work with when developing OS X applications. I agree with you that they can't help themselves but lock shit down, and they will probably do exactly what you described. But even if they did, it's still maybe one. If they do that, I bet you they're going to say you must use this tool or these permission structures when writing Mac OS apps in the App Store. So if you care about the App Store, you're probably hosed anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, let me just finish.
Oh yeah.
But the advantages of these simplified and modernized API points and framework structures are probably still worth it to make those compromises with Apple if you're serious about Mac OS development. Because the one thing about the Mac market, and let's exclude mobile from here, but in terms of workstations, is professional Mac users, tend to keep within one or two major versions, right, or minor versions rather. It's pretty rare for someone to not upgrade their Mac. So eventually, you will be pulled forward as a developer, right, as an app publisher.
Okay. So what you're saying is that because of the regularity of the customer base upgrading, developers will quickly adapt, and the applications will become built around the new whatever the new APIs are and the new OSs fairly quickly.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little less rosy than that because the other reality is shitty iOS developers who are over wherever China or whatever, and are developing shovelware fake iOS apps for the App Store, are also now going to develop shovelware fake apps for Mac OS.
Actually though, if you think about it, the Apple of today that would make this transition is a completely and totally different beast than the Apple that made the transition from PowerPC to Intel or from Classic to macOS 10. So what I mean by that is just by their sheer fucking size and money reserves, they are one of the most important companies in the world. And so when
sweet, beautiful money. Sorry, keep going.
Well, when you go to Adobe and you say, hey, what do you need to make a successful product on our platform if we make this transition? And Adobe says, well, we're going to need this, 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 and this. Apple says, all right, we'll have everybody on point for that. We're going to go here in 5 years. Can you build for that?
Yeah.
Well, hold on. That's a much different Apple today. When Tim Cook's sitting across that table with $200 billion $200 billion is about to come into the United States for Apple. And that, by the way, is just like the shit they have in their cushion. And he's sitting across the table. That's a totally different conversation than when Steve Jobs was sitting across the table with the PowerPC architecture and Flash reigning total supreme. They're in a totally different position now to get the Microsofts and the Adobes of the world to embrace the new Mac OS.
I agree with you, but there's a couple things I think you're overlooking that are super important.
All right.
The first one is Apple's not going to roll out whatever. Let's call it Unity Kit, right? For lack of a better name.
Oh, good. Yeah, let's call it that.
Let's overload Unity even more. They're not going to put a gun to everybody's head and say you have to use Unity. They didn't even do that with Swift yet, right? And you know why? Because it doesn't make sense. It only would hurt them. The other thing is, and I think you Linux guys in particular make this mistake a lot. A Mac really is just a dolled up BSD machine in a lot of ways. It really is. One of the beauties of Mac development is you actually have that BSD underpinning where you can do things like write your entire engine or your entire data processing library part of your application in just straight up C++, right? Basically standard ANSI, and go from there. They're not, I mean, I could be wrong and I would be shocked and appalled if this was true, but they're not going to make Mac developers give that up. Because how could they? I mean,
you're right.
Let's look at Photoshop. Large portions of the Photoshop suite are built in C++ and C because they do crazy graphics processing. No one's going to write that shit in Swift.
It would be the murder of the platform. You're right. You're right.
And this is going to go into, and we're getting close to time for 290, but when you think about the Mac, you have to think about, and I think it's a healthier way to think about it, a completely proprietary controlled distro of BSD. No, really, because once you look at it from that perspective and you remember that you have BSD under the hood, a lot of things that seem hard are really easy. And one of the funny things I found, particularly with Docker and stuff like that, is there are Mac ways to do things, but most things that work on BSD will work on Mac, with no modification whatsoever.
Huh.
So if you want to run a Mac machine like it is a BSD box, You can basically do that, and you get the pretty UI, and you get the graphics drivers, and you can watch, so many of them, Chris. So many loves in my heart. I just jumbled Taylor Swift and Tiffany Albert into one being. It's like Galadriel in a lot of ways. Taylor Swift's newest video, Gorgeous, at the Jingle Ball concert in New York on YouTube. You can certainly do that.
Okay, good to know.
Yes. All right. Glad I got that in there.
Woo! All right, Mr. Dominic. Well, on that high note, is there anywhere you want to send people? If they want more Mike in their life, maybe they want to figure out what Alice can do for them. I mean, give people some links. What the hell, man?
Yeah, please send your donations to the St. Jude's Children's Hospital. It's Christmas. This is my good deed.
Oh, jeez, you're better than me. You know what? That's good. That's you're right. You know what? I'm just gonna leave it at that too. Very good, very good. Go there, and you know what else I'll say is have a great damn holiday. Whatever you celebrate, just have a good one, and hope you got something out of 2017 that's useful. Let's get back here together. We'll do one more of these things, and then let's hang out in 2018, and then we'll make 2018 just kick ass. I don't know how we're going to do it yet. Maybe you can participate in the Discord. Go to discord.me/JupiterColony, hang out there, lifetimesjupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar, and send us your emails, your thoughts, and what we should do in 2018. JupiterBroadcasting.com/calendar. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning this week's episode of the Code Radio program, and we'll see you right back here in about 10 seconds. Nah, really next week. I was just kidding.